Alright, so now let's switch this up just a little bit. So actually, we've already talked about scaling. They kind of threw that in there on example 1. So we already know how to do this dealing with the 1/2. That means that instead of going up to 1 and down to -1, now we're just going to go up to 1/2 and down to -1/2. So this graph is going to be a little shorter than normal, whereas B, we would go up to 3 and down to -3. So it would be stretched, taller than normal. And so we could graph this. We have our 5 important points, pi and 2 pi. And cosine, remember, starts up at 1, but in this case it's shrunk, so it starts at 1/2. It goes down, and then it comes back and finishes where it started. Okay? And so we'd have the same thing over here. We would start high, go low, and then finish high again. And make sure you draw in the nice curves. Alright, you don't want to draw straight lines between your dots. Alright, so knowing that, see if you can knock out 1/3 of cosine x. 2 periods again. Alright, so here we go. We're going to go up to 1/3. We're going to go down to -1/3. We're going to start high and then count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those are my 5 important dots. And then if we started over, we'd have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. 2 periods. Connect your dots in a nice curve, and there's 1/3 cosine of x. Alright, let's try it again for horizontal stretching. So now our period is going to change. So here's what we want to remember. You're going to say the period divided by b, and b is the number next to the x, inside the sine and the x, or in between the cosine and the x. Alright, so down here we've got y equals sine of x over 2. Another way of saying that is sine of 1/2 x. So we've got to figure out what our period is going to be. We're going to take 2 pi, our normal period, and divide it by 1/2. Same thing as saying 2 pi times 2 over 1, or 4 pi. Alright, so now we know that our period is not going to be 2 pi like normal. So normally we'd go out 4 tick marks and say 2 pi out here. Now we're going to say 4 pi. And that's going to be the end of our graph. We know our height. Here's 1 and -1. Sine starts at 0. We'll go up, back to 0, down, and back up. So it looks like that. So the only thing left to do, we really want to label all our tick marks, especially when we don't have a period of 2 pi, when our period has changed. So we need to figure this out. So I think the easiest way to do is start at your end point and cut it in half. That's going to be your middle point. So we'll be here at 2 pi. Cut it in half again. 2 pi, cut in half again. We have our first tick mark. We get pi. And then if you add those two things together, 2 pi plus 1 pi, we end up with our third point here, which would be 3 pi. Okay, first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, and fourth quarter. So it's not always going to be your normal pi over 2, then pi, all the way up to 2 pi, if we have horizontal stretching. Alright, so see if you can figure this out for yourself with cosine of x over 2. Alright, so same thing as the last one, not very different here. We know that it's cosine of 1/2 x, and for cosine the period is also 2 pi. So we'll divide by 1/2 and get 4 pi. So our last point here is 4 pi, our middle point is 2 pi, our first quarter is pi, and our third quarter is 3 pi. We go up to 1, down to -1, and remember cosine starts high, finishes high. Okay, and so there you go. It says we need 2 full periods, so let's keep going. And we're counting by pi's. 5 pi, 6 pi, 7 pi, 8 pi. We're going to go starting down and finishing high again. We'll complete our curves.